All right, folks, let's go even a little deeper now. QI Research, we've got their CEO and chief strategist, Danielle DiMartino Booth. iCapital, we have their chief investment strategist, Shonali Bassick. And golly, I almost don't know where to start, right? But the dot plot came out. You were in the studio. You were like, oh, my goodness, there's some craziness going on in that room. And it looks like there was.
It does. I mean, like all good economists, in order to read through these minutes, we need three hands. Because it was like, on the one hand, there were several who didn't want to do anything at all. Most felt that we shouldn't do anything for the rest of the year. And on the other hand, some felt that we should continue to cut rates. 1, 2, and 3 hands. The fact is, look, Jay Powell founded the Industrials Group when he was at the Carlyle, where he was from 1997 to 2005. No Federal Reserve chair in history has the network of CEOs that he has. He's been told by them right into his ears, we're firing thousands of people. He doesn't need an official data report to understand exactly what's happening in this economy.
We got the Bank of America survey from the fund managers, and trade war is no longer even in the top 4 things, right? And it feels like a lot of these folks are still focused on trade war at the Fed, when everyone else from corporate America to Wall Street has moved on.
Yeah, you see the same thing from corporate earnings. You have tariffs being mentioned less and less, and this understanding that perhaps this was a one-time hit to inflation, or at least a near-term one rather than the longer-lasting one. And even if you did see any inflationary pressure through it, the Fed was baking that in. You saw the summary of economic projections. There was an expectation of that. What my question is, if this was supposed to be a series of risk management cuts, then how does that take away the case for December? You saw the cuts to support the labor market. Why are they backing off now?
So, and of course, now the plot thickens without a jobs report. We learned a couple hours ago there won't be a jobs report. Maybe Scott Bessent knew this was happening. Last night, great interview with Brett Baer. This is the line that stood out. When Brett asked about the Fed, when are we going to get another cut? He says, I hope it's where they're going, because when you're in uncertain times, and after the Schumer shutdown did to the economy, I would think that if you're not taking out an insurance cut, or if you're flying blind, because they don't have the data. So it's so interesting. He says he's calling this an insurance cut. And I mean, I find it hard to argue against it, Danielle, but I have a lot of economists who are still saying, well, the risk to inflation outweighs what's happening in jobs.
They're not even listening to the nation's manufacturing sector. In the most recent ISM report, the actual statement said, whatever transitory tariff inflation was a concern has completely evaporated. It is much more a situation of a lack of demand right now. Inflation, we've been told inflation's not the concern. Jobs are the concern. In the space of 52 hours, Charles, we've had initial jobless claims reported for the survey week for the October non-farm payrolls, and now tomorrow we get the one for November non-farm payrolls at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. When you have that survey data in hand, just from those initial jobless claims, Jay Powell's a wise enough person to be able to see what these big data points would have been, instead of saying, you know what, they're not going to release it until 6 days after we meet. We can't do anything.
Right.
How stale the September data is,
oh my gosh,
is also very frustrating, right? Because, of course, you can understand the data collection issues with the October data. By the way, those same data collections, at least some of those issues would also exist for November. So by the time you get that November data, late in December, maybe even later, you have this issue where it may be incomplete. So where do you see the government-led layoffs? Where do you see corporate America's layoffs that were so recently announced? It could create some volatility in the market for the next few months.
So let's talk about the economy then. There's a headline today: middle-class shoppers are pulling back, sending alarms through the retail industry. There are signs of real distress. We saw a record number of home builders giving discounts, bringing down their prices. Air travel has plunged. It's fallen off a cliff. Shonali, I'll go to you here on this. The consumer, I know the aggregate data is great because we got some very well-off folks and the market's near all-time highs, but the consumer, if you really were to look beyond just how it's skewed, I don't think they're in a great shape as the Fed thinks they are.
The K-shape is real. We talk about it all the time. You called it the French E, I believe. That is a concern. The aggregate data has held up. You look at credit card spending trends, for example. You even look at the different corporate earnings that you're looking at, and you see a different story, even among the low-income consumer, by the way. You do have some companies, I think it was Chili's, that said actually one of their fastest growing areas was consumers making less than $60,000. So there is a very mixed story out there, and again, we don't have that aggregate data. So it's hard to know how bad that story is. Credit card delinquencies also, they are nowhere near crisis levels, but they have ticked up, but they have not ticked up to where we even saw the peak of recent years was. So it's hard to know how much pain is ahead of us, but the pain that there is today on an aggregate level, even among the lower income consumer, is sustained.
You feel like it's sustained? What do you think?
It is sustained from the data.
I don't think so. I mean, when we got the data out from the New York Fed and found out that nearly 50% of all Americans who are applying to refinance their homes, desperate to try and monetize some of the equity in their home, reduce their mortgage payment, that nearly 50% are being rejected. Banks are telling you what the state of the consumer balance sheet is right now, or they would not be denying 50% of applicants going to refinance their homes. So I think that's more reflective. Listen to what TJ Maxx said just today. A big echo of what Walmart has been saying, and even Dollar Tree. People are trading down from what we used to think of as being higher end department stores, trading down to TJ Maxx. That's where the money's being made.
Let me squeeze in one more thing. We've got only a minute to go, but this private equity thing. Your firm, iCapital, put out some great work on this. The table trying to explain this. It's a problem, but for you, it's not at crisis levels yet.
Yeah, it isn't at crisis levels. And by the way, something interesting on the credit markets is you're looking at private credit debt actually see default rates that are still below even that of high yield debt. So if you're going to have a problem in credit markets, you would have it both in public and private markets. I think that this is a really important thing. This is not a credit cycle that we've met yet. Now we're keeping an eye into next year, right? We know that we're at a precipice economically, but the precipice is the word I would use.
Danielle, you see more cockroaches out there?
I do see more cockroaches out there. We just heard from S&P that we've got bankruptcies at a 15-year high, and this morning Blue Owl, one of the biggest players in the private space, of course, canceled the merger of two private credit funds, which really made the market skittish today. I do think that we're going to see more cockroaches going into 2026 that will bleed into the public sector.
If there's a canary in a coal mine, it's Blue Owl.
That's right.
Sure. All right, ladies, thank you both very, very much.